In a world of challenges and uncertainties, hope shines as a beacon, guiding us through the dark times and showing us the way to brighter days ahead. But what exactly is hope? Where does it come from? And how does it shape our lives? I'm Annie Bennett, and I'd love you to join me on this journey as I explore the meaning of hope. I'll delve into philosophical perspectives, personal stories, and scientific insights to understand the power of this elusive emotion. So whether you're seeking inspiration, comfort, or simply a deeper understanding of the human spirit, let's embark on this exploration together and discover the extraordinary power of hope. Hello and welcome to the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. I'm delighted to have invited my guest this morning, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Lucy Hills-Gale is a psychotherapist, and she works with all sorts of different clients. So I'm really interested to find out more about her work and the role that hope plays in her work and in her life. So welcome, Lucy. It's lovely to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're very welcome. So what I generally ask all my guests is for you to introduce yourself, say who you are, a little bit about your story and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I run my private practice. It's called Space to Talk. Down in, I live in Hampshire, not far from Southampton. So I work with clients both in person and online. So not all of my clients live, kind of locally to me. And as you've said, I work with a range of clients. I don't really have a specific niche. I actually keep meaning to find one, and then interesting clients come and bring all sorts of different things. And I love that. I love the variety of work that I do. I work with lots of ages, predominantly young adults, but I get a whole range of ages of clients that I work with, and they bring a whole range of different things. I set up Space to Talk sort of a little bit by accident. It happened just as kind of the pandemic was starting, found out I was pregnant, having to kind of, shift work around. And the clients that I had been seeing through a grant at a nursery school that I was working with, that all came to an end, and they all asked me if they could stay. So they started to pay me, and Space to Talk kind of grew from there, and I now see clients from a cabin in my garden.
Oh, how lovely. So what were you doing before Space to Talk? You mentioned a nursery. I'm intrigued by this now.
Yeah, so that was my career before. I worked in early years. I worked in a nursery school in Winchester, supporting a range of young people, predominantly with additional needs. And that's where I was working when I did my training. I think I was finding a real passion for supporting the families, really enjoying, them coming in and offloading. But obviously in a situation like that, you don't have the space and time or the capacity to be able to give that support. And I recognized there was a real need for it. And it was something that I was kind of really feeling drawn to. So I did my training, and I was really lucky that the nursery believed in me, the head teacher in particular. And so they found a grant, and I set up, still working in the nursery 2 days, and then working in an old church van in the car of the nursery school, grant funded. So I was supporting the families. And I did that for, I think, just over a year. Then, as I say, the grant came to an end, and I thought I was going to have to maybe take a bit of time to sort of see whether or not there were other pots of money out there, and then the pandemic hit. So obviously that meant things were a bit difficult anyway, and the grant was coming to an end. But a lot of the clients, were finding the work really valuable and wanted to continue. So I was really fortunate that a lot of them said, well, can we just switch to online and carry on seeing you?
Yeah.
And I just found out I was pregnant. So I did that for a bit until maternity leave, and then gradually increased once my son was born. So yeah, a bit of a whirlwind, and not really necessarily how I would have planned for it to happen. But
I know
yeah,
lockdown was a big change for lots of people, wasn't it? I
it
mean,
certainly
it
was.
changed what I did, definitely with my business. And um, so I'm interested to know, you obviously were working with mainly the children, but obviously with the families of the children as well. Is that right?
Mostly we were, because it was a nursery school, we were working with the children, but because quite a lot of the children that we were working with had sort of complex needs,
Yeah.
it meant that we did build up quite a unique relationship with a lot of the families, because we
Cool.
would be involved in kind of panel meetings with other professionals, lots of parents' evenings, home
Mm.
visits, that sort of thing. And sometimes it was just conversations at drop off. If you've had a tricky morning, any parent, if you've had a tricky morning, sometimes just being able to be met with a friendly face and just somebody to say, gosh, it's been tough.
Yeah.
Or even, moments of joy. It isn't all about kind of, share. It's the whole spectrum of experience.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I wasn't able to always offer them the time and the space to be able to really say, how are you, what's going on with you, because at those sorts of meetings parents talk about their children, because that's what we're all there for. So
Yeah.
actually being able to have a space to offer them, let's talk about you, let's talk about the impact on your other relationships, on what's going on with you. So yeah, nice to
It's
be able to do.
Absolutely, because it's sort of almost the forgotten, isn't it? The not the necessarily the person suffering, but the
Yeah,
person around the person with the issues and
absolutely.
who is suffering. And this is what the Chronicles of Hope is hoping to look at, rather than the cancer sufferer,
Mm,
to support, particularly young adults who are looking after a parent who has been diagnosed. So
yeah, yeah,
it's really important, isn't it, to have that support network? Because personally, I mean, I'm someone who's been diagnosed with cancer, and actually I think it's possibly even worse for those around you, because they're a little bit at sea. They don't know how to cope with, they don't know what to say, what to do.
mm,
And it's perhaps a little bit more scary for people, on the outskirts, rather than the person involved. Do you think?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think I see that in areas of my work. People will talk about um, being that supportive person, or being the carer, or being the friend,
Mm,
and what that feels like, that the worry about doing the wrong thing, or the feeling helpless, or things that it's bringing up in them. So yeah, I think it can be about sort of understanding how the impact of anything weaves its way through a family or a community,
mm.
and leaves its mark differently on different people. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, isn't it? We all react to things in a different way, and obviously your role as a psychotherapist is to look at how different people react to different things. It's not cookie cutter at all, is it? It's, you know, different, what's the phrase? Horses for courses, different,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah. and
Uh,
and I think that's a message that sometimes we absorb from society, that we're supposed to react to things in a certain way.
mm,
Or that there's a lot of comparison out there. I think particularly with the rise of social media, there's this kind of idea of people being, there's always somebody worse off than you, so you have to express your feelings about something you're going through with that in mind. But actually, we're all impacted by things. It doesn't really matter what anybody else is going through. If you're feeling something, it's about finding spaces where you can let that out without having to feel like you've got to dull it down or edit it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all to do with, validation of, your emotions are valid, aren't they? It's
Absolutely.
interesting because last week I wrote a piece on a blog on rebellious hope following King Charles's talk, and about, quoting Deborah James.
Yeah, yeah.
I came to the conclusion that actually rebellious hope is to do with going against the conventions that are expected of us when we have
Mm,
cancer, speaking in hushed tones, and not actually talking about it because it's not polite to talk about cancer.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's quite liberating, actually, to be able to just have the freedom to let your emotions go, And I'm sure that you encourage your clients to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that learning that there is not a one size fits all approach to anything, that we are allowed to sit with our feelings, and that actually those are organic. When we sit with them and we allow them to have the space that they need, we are going to then process them. We're going to understand ourselves in a different way. And when you have that validation, and so many people want to go straight to the fixing, and that's understandable when you're surrounded by kind of people that care about you, and you're trying to kind of express feelings. People can inadvertently kind of divert from that, not allow you to sit with that, because they want to make it better for you. And of course, nobody wants to see somebody that they care about struggling, but actually giving somebody the space to just say, I know we can't change it, or at the moment this is where we're at, but it is okay for me to feel what I'm feeling about it. And that might also be going against the grain. If everybody around you is expecting you to feel sad and doom and gloom and not able to find joy, and actually that's what you want to do, you want to find the moments of joy, you don't want any more of that to be taken away from you, so you want to sit with the pure moments of joy that come up and feel them. That's okay too. It's about the breadth of feeling and allowing it to come, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. It can be sort of a social convention that actually if you're ill or if you're looking after someone that's ill, you've got to be serious all the time. You can't make jokes. You can't laugh. You can't laugh. I mean, me and my family, we laugh all the time. We have this sort of default setting of mild sarcasm that sort of runs through, and and that's how we are. And I'm happy and I'm laughing all the time. But it's interesting what you say, because whenever I'm watching any kind of television program, usually some kind of reality ones, although I don't watch most of them, and someone starts crying, their first reaction is to say, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
And they're sorry that they're crying, and I'm shouting at the television, "Don't apologize."
Yeah,
it's absolute. I don't know if it's like a cultural thing or just a human nature thing. You apologize for showing emotion.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I see that so much in my work, because I mean, obviously it will depend on what the client is bringing, but there can be tears connected to all sorts of feelings, and often that instant reaction to apologize for it, to acknowledge my potential discomfort, or to assume the people around us are uncomfortable. And I think we absorb that in childhood. Because often when children cry, we're there with a tissue, we're mopping it all up. And, as lovely as that is, and as necessary as that is, to feel fully supported and loved as a child, it can send the message of, when I'm displaying this, it makes the people around me react in a certain way. So I think some of the work that I do is about really unraveling that, reframing it in a different way. We can acknowledge your discomfort of crying in front of me, but you're not going to apologize for it. And even if I am uncomfortable, it's still okay for you to cry. And I won't have to give you a tissue. You don't have to take a tissue. There can be tears and snot everywhere, and that is okay. And that can be really freeing for some people who are like, oh gosh, okay, this is all right.
Yeah, I know. It's funny, isn't it? And then the opposite, because I was a primary teacher for 30 years, so I saw lots of interactions with parents and their children. One that used to really sort of trouble me was when a boy was crying, whatever had happened, perhaps at the end of the day, and the boy was crying about something, and the dad says, "Oh, stop crying, you're not a girl. Stop crying, pull yourself together." And that used to make me think, oh, that poor child, they're not being allowed to validate the emotions that they're feeling. Do you find that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I see a whole array of feelings around crying. And I think sometimes people come with this sort of quota, like, oh, I cried last week, better not cry this week, or I've only been here a few minutes and I've already, and sometimes really there is a lot of fear, and when we unpack it, sometimes there is that really internalized narrative that they almost hear when the tears come, because parents or caregivers or teachers or whoever have made those comments about it being a weakness, or, okay, it's time to stop crying now. You've done that bit. We need to, and yeah, there's a lot of that kind of rhetoric that we carry with us around weakness, or what that means, or what the other person will feel, or you've talked, you've not cried. What must you think of me? Am I lesser? So yeah, there's a lot of, sometimes a whole, weeks of unpacking just the response to sharing your feelings in an external way.
So interesting, so interesting. Because I mean, since my diagnosis last year, and it's getting on for a year now, I've not shed many tears about the diagnosis at all. In fact, the only time, and it does make me laugh now, the only time I've actually cried about it was when I phoned up the HMRC when I'd got a message saying I owed them money, and I didn't in the end owe them money, but the message, I thought I did quite a lot of money, and I phoned them up, and I actually found myself crying, saying, I've just been diagnosed with cancer, and racking sobs. But that was the only time, because I was in such a panic that all the emotions came out. All the emotions came out.
Yeah.
But since then, I'm quite a resilient person. It's not that I hide things. It's just that I have a what will be attitude, and so be it. If I'm got to deal with this, I've got to deal with this, and I don't let myself worry about things. I'm just taught myself not to. Um, so it's really interesting that. But what I'd like to talk to you about now, because this podcast is all about hope, the theme of hope, and I'd love to know how hope sort of manifests itself in your work. How much does it feature in your clients' sort of work and recovery?
I think it's really interesting, actually, because I think it will really vary to when hope is there and when it's not. And I think some clients come to me and I'm the hope. I'm the thing that they're coming to because they really hope that I'm gonna help them, that I'm gonna offer them something. Sometimes I'm a last resort. I hope this is the thing that makes me feel better. Sometimes clients are completely the opposite, and they come and will openly say, I don't really have any hope or belief that this is going to make a difference. I've come here because everyone's told me I should give it a go, or I've tried all of these other things and I don't know what else to do, but what can we do? This is what we're stuck with. And so I think sometimes there is a lot of hope present, and we're really working with that. What do you hope to get from coming? What do you hope to feel? What do you hope this changes for you? And it's really present from that very beginning. And there are other times where it's really hard for the client to connect with that hope because it's maybe never been shown to them. It's never been present. They've never allowed themselves to look for it, because if I look for it and then I can't find it, what's that going to feel like? So I think there are some clients where I have to talk to them about my experience of hope.
Right.
And sometimes that will be very uniquely about me. Let me talk to you about how I see that, how I feel that. And that then might move into, can I share with you what my hope for you might be? So then we're moving it, but it's still here. It's still in my space. And sometimes I will say to the client, what's coming up for you? And they will say, I don't think there is. I don't see it. I don't believe it. And that's okay, because I will then remind them. They don't have to reach out and grab it. I'm all right. I'm fine holding all that hope for them over here in my space. If you imagine this sort of basket of hope that I'm holding, and that's fine. I can see it. I'm in a place where, it's risk-free for me to hold this hope for them. So I can hold it in abundance, and I can keep it with me until they're ready to take it or to receive it.
Interesting. That is so interesting, because my take on hope is that, if you haven't got any, then, almost all is lost, really. It must be quite despairing to have that. I have no hope at all. I mean, how I'm really intrigued by this. How do if someone has that complete lack of hope,
Mm.
what's their next step? How do they sort of go from one day to the next,
Mm.
really? It's
I guess we have to unpick several things, maybe what their reality of hope or experience of hope has been. What has that word meant to them growing up? How's that been used? Because then we can frame it potentially a different way. I mean, it's not about me trying to kind of force some
yeah.
hope upon you,
Mm.
because then it's not authentic, and it's my hope still. It hasn't, it's not become your hope. It's like, chucking it at you, and that's not helpful. But if you're presented with somebody who, for example, has a terminal illness, they might say, well, there's no hope, and that's okay. We can hold that. But what we might look at is, are there other hopes? Do you have hopes for the time that you have remaining? Do you have hopes for your children? Do you have hopes for the world? Your dying doesn't mean that your feelings and your hopes and your desires and your dreams just die with you. So what would that be like to hold space for those hopes that might continue when you're gone, or might continue through other people, or might continue while you're fighting for this something that everybody's told you there's no hope? Well, my hope is tomorrow I'm going to get up and have the strength to go to the beach because that's what I want to do. So it might be just about looking at it in a different way. And the part that I can play is to put that out there and to be curious about it. What would it be like? And they might not want to take that. It's not about forcing this sort of sense of toxic positivity. You've got to find hope. You haven't. But we need to make sure that we've sat enough with their feelings of hopelessness, or not having the hope, or that hope even featuring in where they're at. We're not trying to force it upon them. We're trying to allow them to hold that, but also to be curious about what it might be like to find it in different places.
I love the thought of that. Because up to now, this is so enlightening, because up to now, I've thought of hope as a sort of a universal thing, the hope that you have, the hope that I have. But the thought of having, I'm hopeful for this, but I'm perhaps not hopeful for this. That's quite an interesting thought, isn't it? So, if someone does feel, hopeless, then you can actually say, well, I may be feeling hopeless about this, but this other aspect of my life, I can get on board with that. That is so fascinating.
Yeah. And I think, that's quite empowering. I think, somebody who's been through some really difficult, imagine, sort of telling somebody who's just been told that they'll never have children, and that's been, their desire for many years. It may feel like a complete state of hopelessness. And we're not going to push them.
No.
It's being allowed to sit with that can feel incredibly heavy news, and you've got to process that. It's a sense of loss, it's a sense of grief, and we need to hold space for that. And there might not feel like there's hope, excuse me, within that. But then, as with anything, life is going to go on. So what might your hope be for that space? And maybe you don't know, but maybe you're just going to carry this idea of it will emerge.
Yes.
Maybe it doesn't have a kind of a structured form, but it's a bit malleable, and it will be kind of created through your experience going forward.
I love that. I love that. Sort of discovering what the hope is just by carrying on. And although that, I suppose, in itself is difficult, if you feel that, life is hopeless, the actual, moving forward and getting on, that's the tricky bit, isn't it? It's actually finding the nuggets, the little seeds of hope that you can perhaps start growing,
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think to know that sitting in a space where you don't feel like there's any hope, and you can't imagine what any kind of hope might look like, doesn't mean that you'll never find hope again. And I think that is, that is work that can be really powerful for a client who is feeling suicidal. When you feel like there's no hope, so I can't go on, again, we're not going to try and heap the hope upon that person, because that's not helpful either. But it's to remind them that just because it feels invisible doesn't mean that actually it isn't hiding behind a door somewhere. And you've got to, maybe find what that door looks like, and then find, whatever it is that you need to open that door. And you might not do that on your own, and you don't need to do that on your own. Maybe I'm going to help you with that. Maybe your family are going to help you with that. Maybe a professional in another area is going to, so again, it's about sometimes really sitting with the lack of hope, but knowing that actually that doesn't mean it's completely stopped existing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. That a lack of hope doesn't mean it's permanently, it's just disappeared. It's just, as you say, it's hiding somewhere for now.
Yeah.
And it's just a question of finding the key and sort of unlocking it. I love that analogy. I love that.
Yeah, so it's a powerful one, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. Excellent. Oh gosh, we're coming to the end of our time. This has just been such an amazing talk. What I'd love to know, and I ask all my guests this, that although you've probably said it as we've gone along, but I'll ask you again. I always ask my guests if they've got a message of hope for my listeners. I think you've already said it, but tell us again.
I guess you're right. I guess it's encapsulated by what I've already said, but I guess I would add to that, if you are struggling to find hope, or you are in a space where it doesn't feel like it would be possible, is to maybe surround yourself with people and things and in spaces where the light looks different, where they can maybe share their hopes with you, because sometimes hearing other people's hopes awakens something in you, or it just helps. Maybe they're going to plant the seeds, and then you're going to cultivate that yourself. So sometimes it is about finding spaces, whether that is therapy and your therapist holding that hope for you, or whether that is your nearest and dearest. So I guess my hope for anybody listening who is struggling or finds themselves in a position at some point where hope feels distant, is to go and find those spaces and people that are going to help you find it.
Wonderful. Oh, wonderful. That is fabulous. Thank you so much, Lucy. Now, if people are interested in getting in touch with you, I will put some things in the show notes. I'll put some links in the show notes. But where can they find you? Where can they get in touch with you?
So you can find me on both Facebook and Instagram. I'm probably more active on Instagram, and it's space2talk_counselling. I do also have a website, which is www.spacetotalk.co.uk, and I'm also on Facebook as well.
Thank you. Oh, this has been just such a really lovely chat. Thank you so much, Lucy Hills-Gale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Chronicles of Hope podcast with me, Annie Bennett. I hope you've found inspiration, comfort, or perhaps even a newfound perspective around the meaning of hope. To find out more about the aims of the Chronicles of Hope organisation, please visit thechroniclesofhope.org, where you will find links to our social media accounts and where you will be able to make a much needed and appreciated donation. Thank you.